Huskers Illustrated.
Let's go get a pick and score.
Yeah, it's on, baby. 2, 3, 1.
Let's go play some ball. Are you ready?
And now, here's your host, Chris Schmidt.
Back in with Huskers Illustrated HD, Chris Schmidt and Mike Babcock along with Aaron Babcock. And guys, it's time to get specific with the offense and talk simplification. Several spots on the offense that have newcomers or maybe some incumbents trying to keep their job. Let's talk quarterback. Simplification huge with this position.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest factor for this offense. We heard simplification a million times at the press conference on Tuesday, and the theory behind that is that they want these players to grasp the offensive philosophy, much like the players on defense, where it might take a couple of years to really understand why you're doing everything, but rather than calling out plays and doing things just for the sake of doing them, or that's what the offensive coordinator, they really want the players to grasp, see a defense and know this is where we're going to attack them on the field. So I think the simplification plays in really big for the quarterbacks because they're all on the same playing field right now. There's nobody that has an advantage that's learned the verbiage longer than anybody else. They're all even going into spring camp. So it'll be interesting to see who progresses the most and the quickest at that position.
When you look at this simplification part and whoever's under center or in shotgun in the spread, you didn't see a lot of audibling last year, getting out of bad plays into better plays, and that's something Nebraska wants to do.
Well, yeah, but again, the simplification thing, and I think that was maybe part of the issue there. But it was kind of a carryover, and I don't think that people that criticized Sean Watson probably were totally fair in that. I think Aaron talked about that a little earlier, but the offense was complicated. We know that because Sean Watson was a Bill Callahan guy, and Sean Watson is comfortable with the West Coast offense. And the West Coast offense, my sense is it's a pretty complicated offense. And we always talked about Bill Callahan's playbook and how heavy it was, and it was 5 pounds or whatever, and how thick it was. And there was all this verbiage, and guys had a hard time learning. It took a while to learn all of that, and it was a very complicated just to call a play because of the verbiage or whatever. So now you're simplifying that, and it gives you an opportunity to do things that you couldn't do otherwise. And I think that you want pace is another thing that the offense, what Bo Pelini wants with his offense is pace. And when you've got all this verbiage and it's as complicated as it was, it's difficult to maintain that pace, to get those plays in there, get them called in the huddle, get people to understand what it is they're going to do. So by simplification, you've automatically, I think, given yourself an opportunity once it gets to the point, as you point out, that guys understand not only what they do but why they're doing it, and it becomes more of a reactive thing. And so I think that's where the simplification is going to be a big thing, and it's going to take some time. But the spring, here's where it starts.
When you look at quarterback depth, I mean, you saw 3 different quarterbacks a year ago for Nebraska. Taylor, of course, Cody is back, and then you have a number of guys that haven't had starting time like those two, as Zach Lee is gone. When you look at Nebraska's depth at quarterback, you pretty comfortable with it?
Well, I would say talent-wise, yes. Experience-wise, no. Because we saw what happened last year when Taylor Martinez went down. I think it will depend on this offense and whether Cody Green's comfortable using that offense and whether the plays being called will suit his talents. Obviously, you've got Breon Carnes and Jamal Turner back there as well. Breon was here in the fall, so we got to see he got at least a little bit of experience with the coaches. But yeah, it still comes down to having a playmaker, and I think it comes down to Taylor Martinez having a good grasp on the offense, making smart decisions, which we didn't see a lot of last year, and then staying healthy, which is obviously the number one key.
Well, there's the important thing, as you pointed out, everybody's starting from square one now with the way the offense is going to be simplified or whatever. And the thing that you feel good about is even though you've got some guys that don't have experience, you've got guys that are going to push. There's going to be competition at the position. And that was one of the themes on Tuesday too. And it's kind of the focus of spring practice for Bo Pelini. He's made that clear from the time he got here that spring is a time for competition. Nobody has anything. Everybody competes from the start. So at quarterback, even though you don't have a lot of experience with some of those guys, you have guys that have talent that are going to be in there that are going to compete for the position. So you've got Taylor Martinez, you've got Cody Green, you've got Jamal Turner, You've got Breon Carnes, Ron Kellogg the third, Cody Spano, is still around. So you've got guys that compete. That's going to make the team better. And I think that any position where you can identify multiplicity of guys that have athletic ability, whether they've got experience or not, the competition's going to be there. And I think that's probably one of the dramatic improvements over the time that Bo has been here, is bringing in guys through recruiting and selective walk-ons, is to get that competition in the spring.
Well, and Mike, I think the coaches probably feel comfortable with their depth right now because they have all these kids on campus. But somebody asked Tim Beck the other day whether or not Jamal Turner would maybe take some snaps at wide receiver, or whether he would change positions, and he left the door open that they would figure out how to use him. And I get the sense that maybe he's so athletic that they'd like to find a place for him on the field, but you wouldn't move him from that quarterback position if you were concerned about your depth at all. So obviously the coaches heading into the spring, which is a long way before that Tennessee-Chattanooga opener, they must feel pretty comfortable where they're at.
Let's talk tailbacks. Rex Burkhead is back, and he's kind of the incumbent. He split time with Roy Halou last year, did a great job, and Rex was so good at doing the little things and also getting some yards after contact. High praise for a number of guys coming in at the tailback, but again, they've not done it yet at the Division I level.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's the thing in the spring, and Rex Burkhead and then Austin Jones and Lester Ward and guys that have already, Collins Okafor, guys that have been in the program are going to be there. They're going to be competing, and then if things are going to change, they're going to start competing again all over in fall camp, because that's when in comes Aaron Green, in comes Amir Abdullah, in comes Braylon Hurt. It appears like Braylon maybe got the standardized test score and is going to be able to compete as well. So you've got competition in the spring, and then it's going to start again in the fall with these young guys coming in. And one of the things that Tim Beck said on Tuesday was that, and I think this is a point to remember too, you can have great coaches, you can have great teachers. They can put together a system that's going to work. You can simplify the offense, but it also requires players. And Tim Beck used the example of the young running backs that are coming in the fall. He said it's easier to call a play as offensive coordinator if you've got a guy that can go 90 yards on one play than it is to call 10 or 12 plays to put together a drive to go down the field, because all the things that are factored into that, penalties and holding on to the ball and so forth. So it's going to change what you're able to do offensively depending upon what the players are. And in this case, I think at running back, they've got some young guys that are going to come in there and have an opportunity to play right away, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk offensive line. You have guys at the tackle spots who have started who look like they're pretty solidified. Caputo at center, but you have to replace two pretty good guards, left and right guard. Ricky Henry, Keith Williams are gone. Who are the candidates for that?
Well, obviously Andrew Rodriguez is a guy that you can count on two hands the number of true freshmen that have played in the offensive line enough to letter at Nebraska. Andrew Rodriguez is the latest one, and you're talking about a group that includes Will Shields and Jake Young. I mean, there's some good guys that have done that. And so I think Andrew Rodriguez got some experience. Now, he didn't play a lot, but he got that kind of experience immediately. So I think he's going to be in the competition. I think Brent Qualley is a guy that's going to be in the competition there. Brandon Thompson has had some experience and can play at guard. So again, you're looking at, do you have enough guys that you've got competition to make these guys better? And I think they do.
Finally, wide receivers, and Brendan Kenny, kind of the Lone Ranger out there when it comes to guys who've performed at a high level at the wide receiver spot. Nebraska fans remember that Oklahoma State game he had, 3 touchdowns, really complimented Niles Paul well. Niles is gone. You had a whole host of guys at wide receiver that you've heard good things about, but it's now time for them to shine.
Yeah, I think, Niles, I've never seen a player as polarizing as Niles. He was the go-to, the hero, it seemed like, every game. But I think Husker fans are going to miss him this year, because I think they're going to find out that he really did stretch defenses. But I think from the sounds of it, Brandon Kenny, I think he's really evolving as a team leader. Whether or not he can become that go-to player that you can really count on when you need a catch still kind of remains to be seen. Obviously, Kyler Reed's kind of a hybrid like Mike McNeil. He really came out on his own last year. And then you've got some of the younger guys as well, like Kenny Bell and then Stanley Jean-Baptiste. So I think between those, all you really need is one or two of those guys to really kind of have a breakout year for you, and then you'd be all right.
Quincy Nunn was a guy who did see some time last year, and we'll see if he can continue to build on that. But one thing to wrap up, Brendan Kenny, Taylor Martinez seemed to have a pretty good chemistry. That seemed to be Taylor's go-to guy when it came to third and whatever it was. I mean, that's who he was looking forward to. Huskers Illustrated HD will continue on. We'll touch on the defense next.